Welcome to Ultimate DIY, where you learn to be your own handyman. And today you're going to get to watch me rebuild my own guest bathroom. About a year ago, we started working on this bathroom, but I ended up sidetracked working on other projects. So I have already ran my rough plumbing, and I'm using the Delta multi-valve, which if you watch any of my other videos, you know that's the valve that I really enjoy putting in. And we're going to do something a little unique on this one, though. We are going to install the Wedi board system. Wedi board is a lot like the Schluter system. It takes the place of your concrete board, but it is 100% waterproof. It's very lightweight, not heavy. I don't have all that concrete dust when I'm cutting. If I even puncture the outside of this, it is closed cell on the inside, so it will not leak. They have their own sealing type system, and you're going to see how that works. But that's what we're going to put on the actual walls, and we are going to use the Wedi shower pan that is I have already pre-cut, and I'll kind of go over how I did that too. So if you're buying this system, you'll have an idea of what you got to do. The rough plumbing as far as the drain is already ran, but we're going to go ahead and tie that in, and we're going to get that going. I plan on tiling this room, so you'll get to see that. We are going to put in a new Toto toilet in here, but we're not going to do just any Toto toilet. We're going to put one of the top of the line Totos in here. So you'll get to see that as well. We are going to put a pedestal sink in to make it look nice, because this is kind of a smaller bathroom, and like I said, it's a little guest bathroom. And I do have an area up in the very front that you'll get to see, which we are going to custom build some little cabinets up in there. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and start with the Wedi system, and we are going to put the shower pan in. So let's go ahead and get to it. So what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to go ahead and install the drain system. We're going to pull the actual drain pan up, set it on the side, and we're going to install this. And what comes in these boxes, you're going to have the top, and the top is going to be kind of square, and it has a little ring. This is where you'll set your tile up against. That's the first thing that you're going to have in the box, but the most important thing that we're dealing with right now is going to be the drain assembly. And this is the tool to tighten it down with, so do not lose that tool. You're going to need it. But the very center of this has some little rings, and you got to pull these rings out. So we're going to pull those out. This is the most important part right now, though, of what we're actually installing. And it has a nut here in the back. You have to remove the nut, and it's going to have two washers. This is called a slip ring, and it's slippery. It's just basically cardboard. Do not throw this away. A lot of guys throw it away and think that it's not used, that it's for packing. This allows this nut to slide as you tighten it down without grabbing a hold of the rubber and causing a problem. So do not throw that away. But pull these all off just like this. Set them aside. And now we're going to take the panel up just like this. And the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure this has got all the dust off of it, if you've got dust on there. And you are going to apply the sealant. And you're going to use a pretty generous amount around this. And it is just now starting to come out. So you're going to run that sealant all the way around this really good. Make sure you get plenty on there. And then the other thing I'm going to do is on the actual drain piece itself, I'm going to go around the edge and put another bead. If I can get it on there without making a big mess. Just like that. Keep it going. It's kind of hard to make sure you guys can see and hold this up. But just like that right there. Release the pressure on your plunger. Set that down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to push this in. And you want this to come out and around. That's normal. But I'm not going to smear this yet because we're going to turn it around and we're going to apply the actual locking nut system. So you turn it around just like this, and we are going to take the pieces here and put it on. So the very first thing that goes on is going to be the rubber gasket. Get it all the way up tight there. Then we're going to put the slip washer on, the piece I told you not to throw away. And then you're going to take the nut and you're going to start putting it on. Now the thing about this nut is you do not need, get that to start there. There we go. You do not need any tools. You do not need a big set of pliers. This is just hand tight. So get it nice and snug. That's pretty good right there. Now I'm going to turn it back around. And now I'm going to smear the ceiling in real good here. Get that where it's in there nice. And this sealant will start setting up in about 20 to 30 minutes. So be sure you don't leave this gobbed on there, that you get that down the way you want it. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to set this aside. We're going to go ahead and mix up our mortar, and we're going to mortar this into place. All right, guys, another quick tip. Before you put the drain pan down, you're going to have to cut your drain pipe to the right height. And what they generally call for is about 1/8 of an inch above your subfloor. You can get by with cutting it flush, but I would shoot for that 1/8 of an inch to give yourself a little bit of extra room, because this is a slip fitting that is going to go on here, and you want to make sure that you're able to grab that pipe. So what I do is I will take a couple of drywall squares, because the drywall square is about 1/8 of an inch thick, and I'll put them right beside my pipe, just like this. And then I'm going to use one of the old Japanese type pull saws. Even though this one's made by DeWalt, that's really where they come from. So you're going to take and get it nice and flush, and I'm going to start cutting.
And I did get that on video. I knew it was going to happen.
Another quick tip for you guys. If you're going to injure yourself, do not do it in front of your loved ones, especially your wife or even your kids, because they will never let you live it down. All right, guys. Next time, I'm going to have to wear the gloves. I was trying to stay out of the view of the camera and keep my hand behind it so it wouldn't block the view, and got myself stung a little bit. But it is done now. It's the perfect height, and you can see it's perfect all the way around it. So just note to self, when you guys are doing this, be sure you're wearing gloves and try not to film it so you don't cut yourself. So now what I'm going to do, by the way, on the Wedi system, the mortar that you use is going to be a modified thin set. So they have an adhesive that they put in it. It's a type of glue, which makes this setup stronger than a regular mortar. Also, make sure that the mortar you're using on the modified part, it does work with plywood. I did see a couple that didn't say plywood. They were mainly just concrete. So I generally will look for one that says plywood as well if I'm on a plywood substrate. I'm going to use my big mixer here. I'll have a link in the description so you can get your own mixer like this if you want. These are cheap. They're like $60, but they take the place of buying a big powerful drill and a big end to try to put on there. These, I always keep an extra bucket of water here, by the way, and I have my other water pre-mixed for this, or actually pre-measured, I should say, to mix this, because I'm only going to use about half of this right now. This one is, I think it was calling for 6 quarts, or actually it was 5 quarts. So it's going to take 2.5 quarts in this. And what I'll do is I'll put some of the water in. I won't put it all in. I'll pour what I think is half, and I'll start mixing. And if I need more water, I'll just add it, because you want it somewhat runny when you're actually applying to this type of these type of boards. You want it to be able to stick, so it needs to be a little bit runny. It also calls for a 1/4-inch trowel notch, so my notches are going to be a 1/4 inch. So we're going to go ahead. I went ahead and bought a brand new one for this one. That's why you still have the sticker on it. I'm going to go ahead and mix real quick, cut this open, and you can watch that. Okay, cutting open the actual bag. And what I do is I'll just cut a chunk out of the end, so it gives me like a pour type spout. And like I said, we're going to try half. Now you don't want to breathe this stuff in. It's got silica in it. It's not good for you.
Where's your mask?
So you try not to do that. Just like that. I'm going to say that's good. All right, so I got the mask on now. We're going to add water. Now, I'm not going to add all of it. Like I said, I'm going to pour a pretty good chunk. And we're going to start trying to mix. Pour a little more water. Definitely want it running, and it's not running enough. So it did pretty much take all the water I pre-mixed. So that's what we're looking for. So now what I do with this, you don't want to let that just harden on your bit. So you're going to take and put it in the clean water and let that stay just like that. Alright, so now, let's take this off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start applying my mortar to the floor first. And how you're going to do that, you're going to get the mortar, put it on. You don't worry about your grooves yet. You're going to do what's called burning. And you're going to start burning it into the substrate. And it's blocking our light a little so you guys can't really see. Let me slide this back. There you go. Now y'all can see a little better. Now I have already pre-marked on the substrate where my shower pan should stop. So I want to make sure I'm past it a little. We'll clean the other up afterwards. Alrighty. So when you get it burned in like this, the good thing is it'll make it easy to go back and put your lines, the grooves. And you know you've got full coverage. It gets down into the small particles of the plywood. So now what you do is you take your grooves and you are going to groove the mortar like that. And what that does is it makes it rise up, and when you push down, it squishes down into those grooves, that it allows air to get out. Alright, so that, actually I'm going to put a little more right there, it looks a little bit low. There we go. And if you keep the trowel pointed down a little, you won't take as much off. You'll leave more of it on. If you tilt it up, you tend to dig down too deep in the mortar base. Right there. Just like that. There we go. That looks good. Now we have to actually take the base itself, and we have to do the same thing. So we're going to take and burn it in first. Basically called back buttering. If you're putting a tile in, it works the same way. So by doing this, you end up with full coverage. Now, make sure I got plenty on here to set it. Now, to show you how I know my directional, if I turn this over, I have put a marking on here so that I know that is going this way. I also know this is longer, so it really doesn't matter so much that I know where that angle is right at this point, except for the fact I know that my angles need to go this way, my grooves. So I'm going to take it, make sure I have plenty on there. Just like that. And remember, try to keep the trowel down so you don't take too much off. Just like that. Okay. Now what we're going to do is turn it around, and I'm going to look for my marking, which my marking is down here pointing to this direction. So I know this is the way I cut this so that it'll make the tightest possible fit. Now we're going to place it, get it right over our line. And at this point, what you do is you really need to stomp this thing down. And if you're letting it set up, you can even put bags of mortar and things on top of it to hold it down, especially overnight. You just want to make sure that you've got good contact. All the way around it. All right, now we can actually don't want to leave this all gunked up too high because it might make it a little harder when you go to put your curve in here in a little while. You don't want anything sticking that up. You want it nice and firm. The curb I do not put in until I get my sides on. So my sides are going to go past these corners a little. That's one thing a lot of people don't point out to you. And when you're in here, people will go and they'll cut it right to that corner. I have cut my sheetrock back enough to be able to bring the actual panels all the way up here, all the way to this angle. I don't know if you can see that. So instead of bringing my panel to this edge, my panel will go all the way to the sheetrock line. That way it helps with moisture and things later. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and attach the drain part of it that actually seals. So these are mechanical seals. You don't solder your pipe to these pans. The way this works on Wedi is it has this big gasket, and this angled part has to be facing up. And you'll have a nut here as well that will go on top of it. But this is why it has to be flush, or you cannot be more than 1/8 of an inch up. So you're going to take and push this down around this pipe. So you got to work it down around this pipe, and it's a tight fit. And usually you'll have to use the screwdriver to help try to push it down in there and get it to fit. You don't want to rip this thing up or cut it. I'm using a Phillips here, which seems to work better, and I pull the pipe the opposite direction, and it's pushing it down really nicely and slowly getting it where it's got to be. So I've got this little ledge left right here, so I'm going to pull back this way and work my way to that edge. It's slowly working its way in there. That's part of the reason for having that angled part up, because if you didn't have that angled part up, you'd never get this down in there. And you wanted a nice tight fit. There we go. Just about in. You wanted a nice tight fit because you don't want water to be able to get by there. There we go. That's looking good. All right, so now we've got that in there all the way around. Now we're supposed to take the ring and place it. If you notice, it has notches on the top. The reason it has the notches is for your tool that's going to actually slide in here to allow you to turn it. So obviously it's going to go with this up. So you're going to take this down and put it in here. Take your tool and be careful not to drop that down your pipe, and place it in the top, and then use a screwdriver. Actually, I'm going to try the larger one. That'll make it a little easier to turn it. And by doing that, it locks that in and compresses that O-ring even more. Get that to take. Just like that there. All right, so now that it's in, what we're going to do, we're going to finish putting everything on here and get our curb on, and then later we will come back and we'll do a flood test and make sure that it actually is holding water.